Hello, welcome back to another pen talk. Thanks for tuning in. Yes, we're on another roll. We have 4 pens here that I recently purchased from China on eBay. And I purchased these pens because a viewer made note of their resemblance to this online pen that I did a review on a month or so ago. So he suggested I check out these pens. So these 4 pens cost a little over $6 delivered. So they're in that approximately $1.50 a piece. That's US dollars. So they're in, I would call, the very low end of fountain pen pricing. But they do have some interesting, unique features to them. And I wanted to look at them and show them to you. And these bottom 2 have that kind of metallic coating that's similar to the online pen. And then the other 2 just have a little bit of a color element here in the wire clip area. Then the rest of the pen is fairly clear, transparent, and demonstrator. So you may say that these look like they could be candidates for eyedroppering, and they're not. I did the air test and they don't hold air. The bottom of the barrel has this design we've seen before, some of the Wing Sung 3007. And there's openings there that let air out. So if you put ink in there, it would just flow out the bottom. So I've cleaned out 2 of these pens because one of the things that's interesting is I got these also because each of these, one of them has a standard nib, one of them has a hooded nib. And I've been very happy with the hooded nibs that I've gotten from China. And this has a regular nib. So these are the 2 that I'm going to ink up. I'm going to use the same ink in both of them just to see a comparison of that nib with a different, same ink in it, but different nib in the 2 different types of pens. And the other 2, you know, this has a standard nib, this has a hooded nib, so I got a combination of them. And let's look at some of these in more detail, and then we'll ink some up and put pen nib to paper. So when I originally saw this under incandescent light, I thought this was a white insert instead of yellow. It's not exactly what I would call my favorite color. We have a classic stick-on label here, barcoded, kind of to assist in any type of retail transaction of a real brick and mortar store, and also to keep inventory straight if you're an online store. Just a plain snap-off cap. Yeah, I could pull this assembly out. It doesn't unscrew like some pens like the Jinhao 991 and 992. We've seen this converter a couple times before. You know, it's a classic piston converter. Probably holds, you know, somewhere around a little over 1/2 mil of ink. You know, this just pulls out. It's a nice tight fit. You know, there's nothing, no metal band, no little insert of softer material. So this is, well, I call it a low-end type of converter. You know, this pulls off. This is just a pressure fit cap. So I haven't, you know, needed to do anything with them. And it just goes into place, fits over that nipple at the end of the nib assembly. And of course the cap snaps securely back on. And this is the green one. You know, this is labeled with the maker of the pen, just as the online pen is, but there's no stylus here like there is on the online. The material just feels a little different. Again, a pull-off cap. You know, if we compare the barrels, you can see there's no window in the Yiren, so it's definitely has less features. The nib is substantially different. but hopefully it'll write differently too, because I wasn't a fan of the online writing experience. And this is an interesting color. It feels a little bit slippery and shiny, kind of feels metallic. Yeah, this is a little bit of a rubberized section here, not quite as soft as the one on the online, but it is sculpted out, you know, with your 3 indents there for positioning the fingers. Standard unscrew, and we see a different type of converter than we saw on the clear ones. And this one, I think this would look interesting in the clear one, you know, with the red and the black, but you know, they decided to put a clear converter in there. And it also has that little insert, little softer material. I think this type of design may have more longevity and work better, but you know, time will tell. Sections on all of these pens have that little notched area there that you would think would be correspond to little knobs here on the converter, kind of like Lamy does on their Safaris. So when you push it in, you could turn it and lock it in place. But yeah, there's really no need for it. But whatever injection mold they were using for the sections obviously serves multiple purposes and probably multiple pens. So the other reason I bought these Yirens is I thought it would be a good, and that probably is a bad pronunciation, but Yiren, Yiren might be better. Doesn't sound like a waste material. So there's a lot of similarity between these two pens. One is an online pen sold by a German stationery store, and the other is a pen definitely made in China and sent and exported from China. You know, the same type of metallic color, same kind of like rubberized cap. You got that little knob there that the wire clip, and the wire clip is pretty much identical between the two. That little insert is also fairly similar in design and function. Different logo. So why are these pens so similar? I don't know the exact reason, but here is my theory. My theory is that the company that made this pen, the Yiren, may have come up with this design or may have collaborated with online. Online may have approached them and said, you know, we'd like you guys to make a pen. Maybe they sent out a specification to different Chinese pen manufacturers and said, you know, what would you cost to make a pen like this? And whatever the relationship is between online and the manufacturer may or may not include exclusivity, meaning that they can only do this for online and they can't make their own OEM pens. Or the design may have already been in the factory and online just said, here, make some changes to it and make it specific for what we want. And obviously this is a unique pen with a stylus and other design attributes, different nib. So yes, there's similarities, but in no way do I think one is a copy or a knockoff of the other. I just think this is an excellent example of a global manufacturing and distribution of a product that has a lot of common elements among it, but certainly two different pens, branded differently, marketed differently, and sold differently. The biggest difference is there's a fairly large price differential between the two pens, but then one is branded with a more Western known label, you know, backed by a selling concern, retail concern, and that explains some of the differences. So what ink to put in the pen? I'm putting in this ink primarily because I'm thinking of gifting the clear Yiren pen to a friend of mine who might like it, and he likes blue ink, so we're going to put a blue ink, and we're going to put the same blue ink in both of them, both the hooded nib and the standard nib. And my friend is also a left-handed writer, and I think the hooded nib is easier for some left-handers to use because it's less dependent upon angle and direction than standard nibs are. Now, both of these pens have been filled with the Zorn number 4. The converter in the solid pen I think has a few tenths of a milliliter more capacity. I think it's a nicer converter, as I kind of noticed when I took them apart. But on both of them I got a fairly good fill. I did my usual 3 fills and empties, or sorry, 2 empties and 3 fills, so you have to end up with a fill. You know, you got a little bit of ink here in the around the feed, which is interesting. You know, again, to me, for a $1.50 pen, you're not going to expect perfection, but they are writing instruments, so let's see when nib hits paper what they're like. We'll start with this pen. These are extremely light. Here's the weights. Pull off cap. I mean, it's a good sized pen. As you can see, it fits well in the hand without posting. And there's also an opening there at the back. But if you're a poster, they post deeply and fairly securely. And with this lightweight pen, you feel the cap there, but it doesn't really change the writing experience very much. I'll write with this unposted. And then you can hear that nib on the paper. I mean, it's not real unpleasant, but it's noticeable. And this is just a really stiff nib. For those that use a lot of fountain pens, I think you can understand what I say. I mean, when this nib touches paper, there's no give, no softness. I mean, it's a nail. Some people might like that. I mean, it makes a very consistent line. You can see there's a little bit more ink flow on the downstrokes, different from the horizontal, but I mean, I would say it's not my most pleasant of nibs, but it's usable. And with the cap liner and that Lamy design at the end here that snaps into the cap liner, I'm certain this will not dry out anything soon. You know, the nib is branded with the company and the EF for extra fine. Your standard plastic feed on the back. So overall, if I was going to rate this pen, well, I am going to rate this pen. The rating, I would give it a 5.5. I mean, I think the design is interesting. I think the colors are interesting, but just the writing experience is not what I enjoy. So let's take a look at the 562 hooded nib. I'm going to call this a fine nib. I mean, the first thing is this is wetter. There's the same type of feedback, but it's not quite as evident, and that might be because this is a smaller size nib, so that means there's less in touch with the paper, which in a sense could give you more feedback. But if we take a look at these here, as you can see, the horizontal are much thicker here, and the verticals are about the same. Originally, I felt that there was a little bit of softness in the hooded nib, but I think it's just because of the tipping material that I feel that way. But it certainly lays down a nice, consistent batch of ink. It dries pretty quick on this Fabriano paper. So how would I rate this pen? I'd give it a 6.0. I just enjoyed the hooded nib more than I enjoyed the extra fine nib on the 570. And also this section here just feels a little nicer, but if I go back and forth between the two pens, each of them have their advantages and disadvantages. I'm not a fan of these Lamy style cutouts. I like to be able to hold the pen any way I like and rotate it around, and these kind of keep your fingers in one spot. So that's, I can't really rate pens higher because of that section, and it's about a medium-sized section, about the same size as a Lamy per se. So we've reached the end of this video of some interesting pens. So thank you for watching. May you have many great experiences in the wonderful world of pens. Explore nibs, inks, and paper. So we've reached that time. Go out into the world and have fun. Until the next video, bye. Nice blue.